Hi everybody, I'm Inka Cresswell. I'm a wildlife filmmaker and underwater photographer and have a background in marine biology. I have always been just completely obsessed with our oceans, and from a really young age the idea of being a marine biologist was my absolute dream job. I was incredibly lucky that I got to pursue that dream and go to university to study marine biology. And after graduating I did some amazing research projects in shark research and all sorts of other things around the world. But the more that I learned about these ecosystems and the more I was kind of exposed to the threats that are facing our oceans and realised just how much they're changing, the more I felt compelled that I needed to do more. And that was why I decided to do a career shift into wildlife filmmaking. I've always been so appreciative of photography and the way that photographs can be used to share these conservation messages. So for me, wildlife filmmaking was just that next step. Starting out in the wildlife filmmaking industry is definitely difficult, but I was in a really lucky position where I was able to do a master's in wildlife filmmaking. And as a part of that master's, I had this amazing opportunity to make my own film. And that was the first time that I was really given that level of responsibility where I could choose what the narrative was and what story I wanted to tell. And obviously with the oceans being such a huge part of my life, I felt that I had to make an ocean conservation film. That was, for me, was a must. But then I started thinking more about how I wanted to do it and what I could do with my platform that wouldn't only tell the story of some of the amazing researchers working to save our oceans, but also inspire more young girls to get involved in STEM, to get into diving, to understand that this is something that impacts all of us, and to act as a role model for them to be able to pursue that dream as well. I started diving when I was pretty young, and for me I was always surrounded by a lot of much older divers, and there was this recurring theme on a lot of my dives where you'd always get an older diver saying to you, "Oh, that was an amazing dive, but if only you'd seen it 10 years ago," or "That was fantastic, but back when I used to dive here we used to see sharks on every dive." And it was those narratives that kind of just kept coming up, and I realised, wow, this ecosystem that I am so in love with is actually only a shadow of what it once was. And that's the narrative that kind of drove through my film. But I didn't want to only leave people thinking about, wow, what have we done, but also thinking, okay, well, what can we do? How can we make a real difference? How can we drive conservation action?
I have always been enchanted by stories of our oceans, great tales of exploration, and an ocean thriving with life. I imagined, what would I have seen if I had dived on these sites just 10, 20 or 50 years earlier? Would I have seen sharks here? Would the ocean floor have been lined with beautiful corals and tornadoes of jacks? For years, we have been sold a story about beauty below the waves. But unfortunately, like most stories we've been told, they were never ours. They belong to a different generation, my father's generation. And unless we act now, they will remain just stories.
I had the incredible opportunity to work with the Gatorhead Foundation, which is an amazing organisation in Jamaica, which is where my family are from. So for me it was this really special experience. I was able to return to Jamaica and get involved in the science that's taking place there to conserve their reefs. And what I loved about this project was their approach to things, and it was working with the local community, with the local fishermen, to replant reefs and look at how they can tackle these conservation issues at a much more ecosystem level. And that was a fantastic project to be a part of, and I was really excited to be able to document their work. So I hope you enjoyed checking out some of the videos. I hope that you're inspired to get out there and dive, and yeah, enjoy.
This passionate team work with cutting-edge science in wet labs to find ways to not just monitor the health of their reefs, but plant new ones. Working in collaboration with local fishermen, they have created fish sanctuaries that will give these reefs the time they need to recover.
When you break small pieces of coral off, there is a healing response in the coral that accelerates the growth, and that's how microfragmenting was kind of discovered. So we have two different types of nurseries set up in the water that are glowing staghorn coral. The idea is to take small pieces from the natural population and multiply them to then be able to rehabilitate reef areas. if you attach a number of pieces like what I've done here on the same piece of substrate, they will all grow at this accelerated rate, and then they will fuse together because they're all the same.
My favourite thing about diving is that we are all united over this huge passion for our oceans. And I've never been on a dive boat where I don't have something in common with someone, and that's something really nice. Anyone who knows me knows that I can talk about sharks for hours and hours and hours, and I think the dive boats are probably the only place where that's tolerated. So I'm very appreciative to be a part of this community, and I look forward to sharing more of my work with you, and I hope that it gets you as excited about getting out in the water as it makes me every day. Thanks. Today we did a biopsy of a manta ray. We were hoping that we'd be able to just do hammerhead tagging here, but just had mantas coming at us from every direction. It took a lot of thinking on the spot, trying to shelter ourselves from the wind and trying to keep everything as sterile as possible. We kind of got caught in the current swimming out, and then just dolphins just came in to us from every direction, and it was just one of those moments where your heart's going and everything around you is just incredible. Yeah.
Every plastic that has ever been created still exists today, but what happens is as they're floating out in the ocean, being hit by wave power and heated by the sun, they get broken down into tiny little fragments that are so small you can barely see them in the water.